The Trump administration says it is cautiously optimistic that the president will meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un in the next few weeks. A time and place for that meeting have not been announced yet. But on Monday, President Trump suggested a new possible location. Mola Lenghi is at the White House.
President Trump says his administration is still looking at possible locations for a summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un to discuss the denuclearization of the communist country.
The good news, everybody wants us. It has the chance to be a big event.
During a news conference with Nigeria's president in the Rose Garden, President Trump mentioned Singapore as a possibility, along with the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. That's where Kim met South Korean President Moon Jae-in last week.
There's something that I like about it because you're there. You're actually there, where if things work out, there's a great celebration to be had on the site, not in a third-party country.
The Trump administration says so far, North Korea is keeping its word to stop conducting missile tests, but acknowledges the regime has broken promises in the past.
If it's not a success, I will respectfully leave. It's very simple.
President Trump says he won't accept less than full denuclearization. It's unclear how Kim interprets that. In exchange, Kim wants sanctions relief and a promise the U.S. won't invade North Korea. In gestures of goodwill, North Korea is now going to match its time zone to South Korea's. Back in 2015, Kim moved the North's clocks back 30 minutes. South Korea says it is removing the loudspeakers at the border that were used to blast propaganda and pop music. The two countries say they want to turn the DMZ into what they are calling a genuine peace zone. Mola Lenghi, CBS News, the White House.
Niall Stanage is a White House columnist for The Hill. He joins me now from Washington. So, Niall, President Trump said if potential U.S.-Korea talks are not a success, he will, quote, respectfully leave. How would the administration gauge the success of that meeting? Is it just about denuclearization?
Obviously, denuclearization is one of the major issues, but I think a lot of this is frankly about symbolism. I mean, that's not to deny its importance, Elaine, but I think that the president wants to show that he can win a diplomatic victory here. How that victory is defined, we don't really know, but the mere fact of such a meeting taking place is certainly something that he, I think, cares about and wants to see propagated as widely as possible.
Well, at the same time, President Trump appears poised to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal. He says that move would not send the wrong message to Kim Jong Un. But is the White House worried about how some U.S. allies might react?
I'm not sure that the White House is worried, but I do think that there's a general concern in the foreign policy establishment about that point. The danger here, I think, is the fear that the United States' word will not be taken as good in these agreements. These agreements are obviously, by their nature, exceptionally complicated, and the idea that the US would seek to renegotiate them after the fact, I think there is a concern that that undercuts future agreements as well as posing a danger to the Iran deal.
Well, President Trump spoke with French President Emmanuel Macron on Monday about Iran, and last week Macron urged the president to stay in the Iran deal. At this point, does it seem like President Trump could change his mind?
It seems possible. It is always possible, I think, that President Trump changes his mind. I know that the French president and the diplomatic corps around him had hoped to make a little more progress than they actually did last week on that. But there's still the possibility of President Trump changing his mind, coming to a more conciliatory position. And clearly there seems to be a significant push in that direction from the European allies, who we have already mentioned.
Well, what exactly does the administration want changed in the deal?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, one of the difficulties is whether there could be a side deal arranged that I'm not myself clear how this would ensure that Iran does not get nuclear weapons. Mr. Macron, who we have just talked about, said that even under the existing terms, Iran will not develop nuclear weapons. The administration has suggested it wants stronger safeguards, but precisely how those would be formulated is not clear to me.
Well, in this day's edition of West Wing Intrigue, White House Chief of Staff John Kelly is pushing back against a report that he called President Trump, quote, an idiot. Now, Kelly says this story is, quote, total BS. How, Niall, do you expect this to play over in the West Wing?
It's a very problematic story for John Kelly, and I think the ferocity of the pushback shows its danger to him and to his position. Some sources that I spoke to were comparing this to the controversy when Rex Tillerson, then the Secretary of State, was reported to have called President Trump a moron. That controversy is perceived to have sealed Tillerson's fate, even though it was several months later until he was fired. Now, John Kelly's deputy did speak with me briefly this afternoon, and he reiterated the point that this was completely untrue. He said that as a former Marine, John Kelly would not tolerate anyone speaking disrespectfully of the Commander-in-Chief. So that gives you some sense, Elaine, of the degree of pushback we're seeing.
Right, no shortage of drama. Niall Stanage, thank you so much, Niall.
Thanks.